Admiral Gray stood at the United Nations podium, his weathered face illuminated by harsh lights. The chamber was dead silent as he held up the alien communication device. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "we are not alone, and we are not safe." 3 days earlier, massive ships had appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls gleaming with a metallic purple sheen that no human engineer had ever created. The initial panic had been contained when the vessels made no aggressive moves, instead broadcasting a simple message in perfect English: "We come in peace." The Empire's first contact vessel, *, the Light of Progress *, was smaller than its escort ships, but still dwarfed the largest human spacecraft. Its captain, High Commander Wilson, believed this mission would be like the hundreds before it: simple, routine, and ending with a new species joining the Empire's vast coalition. The first meeting took place on neutral ground, the International Space Station. Humans had upgraded it hastily, adding new modules to accommodate the alien visitors. The station's commander, Robert Thompson, waited with a small team of Earth's best diplomats and scientists. When the Imperial delegation stepped through the airlock, the humans faced their first surprise. The aliens looked almost human, save for their height and slightly purple skin. Evolution, it seemed, had favored shapes across the galaxy. "Your species shows promise," High Commander Wilson said, his translator converting his musical language into English. "We offer you membership in the greater Galactic Empire, where you will find protection, technology, and prosperity." The human delegation listened politely as Wilson outlined the Empire's terms. Earth would become a protectorate, giving up military autonomy, but gaining access to faster-than-light travel and advanced medicine. It was, by Imperial standards, a generous offer. Then came the fatal mistake. "Of course," Wilson added, examining the station with barely hidden disdain, "your military forces will be disbanded. Soft creatures like yourselves have no need for weapons when the Empire's protection is guaranteed." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Commander Thompson, a veteran of 3 wars, kept his face neutral. "Soft creatures?" he asked quietly. Wilson waved his hand dismissively. "We've studied your history. Your species still fights among itself over resources and ideology. Such primitive behavior demonstrates your need for Imperial guidance. Your weapons are toys compared to ours, and your conflicts are like children squabbling in a playground." The human diplomats exchanged glances. Chief Negotiator Linda Martinez cleared her throat. "High Commander," she said carefully, "perhaps we should discuss this further. Humanity has a long and complex relationship with warfare." "What is there to discuss?" Wilson's translator carried his condescending tone perfectly. "Your most powerful weapons would barely scratch our smallest vessels. Your tactics are predictable. Your armies are divided. Accept our offer, and we will teach you civilization." Commander Thompson stood up slowly. At 60 years old, he had fought in jungles, deserts, and cities. He had seen humanity at its worst and its best. "High Commander," he said, "I strongly advise you to reconsider your words." Wilson's expression shifted to one of annoyance. "You dare to threaten the Empire." "Not a threat," Thompson replied. "A warning. You've studied our history but learned the wrong lessons. Those wars you dismiss, they taught us something your empire seems to have forgotten." "And what is that?" "How to fight against impossible odds. How to adapt. How to survive." Thompson's voice remained calm. "Every weapon you see today was built because we used it against ourselves first. We know war intimately because we've never stopped preparing for it." The Imperial delegation left the station shortly after, their offer of protection now carrying a subtle undertone of threat. Within hours, their ships had moved closer to Earth, a clear show of force. Back in the UN chamber, Admiral Gray finished his briefing. "The Empire has given us 24 hours to reconsider their offer," he announced. "They believe we will surrender rather than face their superior technology." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from nations that had been enemies mere days ago. They don't understand that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our technology. It's our experience with war itself. The Empire has known only victory for 10,000 years. They've forgotten what it means to fight for survival. And we? Asked the Secretary General. Admiral Gray's expression hardened. We've never forgotten. He turned to face the giant screen showing the Imperial ships in orbit. God help them if they make us remember. The Imperial fleet started their attack at dawn. High Commander Wilson watched from his command ship as 5,000 vessels descended toward Earth. Their purple hulls caught the morning sun, creating a spectacular light show that he thought would be the last beautiful thing this primitive world would ever see. Begin the standard conquest pattern, he ordered. Disable their primitive communications first. But Earth didn't follow the standard pattern of conquest. As the Imperial ships entered the atmosphere, they met no large military formations, no massed fleet of defenders. Instead, they found emptiness. The humans had disappeared. Colonel James Parker watched from his underground command center as Imperial ships passed overhead. Around him, military officers from 20 different nations worked in perfect harmony, their past rivalries forgotten. On his main screen, the Empire's invasion force spread out in textbook formation, exactly as they had done in their last 1,000 conquests. They're looking for armies, Parker said to his international team. They're looking for bases and fleets. He smiled grimly. Let's show them how humans fight. The first Imperial ship fell to what looked like a primitive missile. The projectile was slow, easily detected, and completely ignorable by Imperial standards. But when it hit, it didn't explode. Instead, it cracked open, releasing a swarm of tiny drones that cut through the ship's hull like surgeon's scalpels. Impossible, Wilson muttered as the massive vessel crashed into the Pacific Ocean. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Sir, his aide reported, we're detecting similar launches worldwide. But we can't find their launch sites. They're coming from everywhere. That was the first lesson the Empire learned about human warfare. Everything is a weapon. Farmers' fields concealed missile silos. Fishing boats carried submarine detection equipment. Civilian communications satellites turned out to be orbital weapon platforms. The humans had been preparing for this moment not for years, but for generations. In Nevada, a team of engineers led by Dr. Mary Cooper worked frantically on a captured Imperial fighter. Their technology isn't actually more advanced, she reported to command. It's just different. They focused on size and power. We focused on flexibility and precision. The second Imperial ship fell to what appeared to be a school bus. The yellow vehicle, parked innocently on a mountain road, suddenly unfolded into a plasma cannon reverse-engineered from scraps of Imperial technology. How? Wilson demanded as reports of losses began to mount. How are they adapting so quickly? His tactical officer, pale with stress, displayed a report. Sir, we've analyzed their entertainment media. They've been imagining and planning for alien invasions for over a century. Everything we're doing. They've already thought of ways to counter it. The third lesson was the most painful. Humans had turned their greatest weakness, their constant warfare, into their greatest strength. By sunset, the Empire had lost 30 ships, not to a grand space battle, not to superior technology, but to endless, ingenious ambushes, to weapons that shouldn't have worked but did, to tactics that no civilized species would consider. In his command center, Colonel Parker received reports from around the world. Russian hunters using electromagnetic pulse rifles, Brazilian guerrillas with heat-seeking nanobots, Australian special forces riding modified Imperial hoverbikes. Status report, he called out. Sir, his communications officer replied, the Empire is pulling back. Their ships are regrouping in high orbit. Parker nodded. On his screen, he watched the Imperial fleet retreat to a safe distance. They had expected an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they'd found an enemy that had spent its entire history preparing for war. In his command ship, High Commander Wilson stared at the battle reports in disbelief. His perfect record, the Empire's unbroken string of victories, had been shattered in a single day. "Send word to the Imperial capital," he ordered quietly. Tell them we found something new. A species that doesn't fight like the others. A species that turns everything into a weapon." He looked down at the blue planet below, seeing it with new eyes. "And tell them to send reinforcements, all of them." On Earth, Colonel Parker was already preparing for the next round. "They'll be back," he told his team. "And now they'll be angry. But that's okay." He pointed to a screen showing humans worldwide adapting and improving captured Imperial technology. "We've spent thousands of years learning from our enemies. Time to show them what else we can do." The Empire had made a fatal mistake. They had judged humanity by its technology, not its tenacity. They had counted ships and guns, but forgotten to count scars. Most importantly, they had forgotten that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that has never known lasting peace. Commander Thomas Reed of the Imperial Fleet sat alone in his quarters, watching camera footage from Earth for the 10th time. His hand shook as he replayed the scene. Human soldiers using Imperial hover tanks in ways their designers never imagined, diving them through buildings, using them as mobile cover, even turning them into massive bombs. "What kind of species thinks like this?" he whispered. The door chimed. "Enter," Reed called out. His second-in-command walked in, carrying a datapad. "Sir, you need to see this. The humans. They're attacking our supply lines." "Impossible. They don't have faster-than-light ships." "No, sir, but they have our ships now." On Earth, Major Helen Banks climbed into the cockpit of a captured Imperial fighter. Her team had repainted it midnight black, stripped out the safety systems, and added what they called human improvements. "Command, Thunderbird 1 ready for test flight," she reported. In the underground command center, Colonel Parker watched her vitals. "Remember, Major, this is just a test. Don't engage the enemy." Banks smiled. "Unless they engage first." Parker sighed. "Unless they engage first." The stolen fighter rose from its hidden mountain hangar. Within minutes, Banks spotted an Imperial supply ship, its crew completely unaware that humans had already learned to fly their technology. "They really should have checked our flight records before invading," Banks muttered, engaging the weapons systems. "We've been flying combat missions since 1914. The supply ship never saw her coming." Back on his flagship, High Commander Wilson received the latest casualty reports. In just 1 month, the Empire had lost more ships than in the previous 1,000 years combined. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His intelligence officer, looking exhausted, pulled up new data. "Sir, we've discovered something disturbing. Humans don't have a single military doctrine. Each of their nations develop different ways of fighting. When we adapt to one style, they switch to another. Surely they can't all be effective." "That's just it, sir. They've spent centuries testing these tactics against each other. What we're facing isn't just one military tradition. It's hundreds, all proven in combat, all working together for the first time." Wilson slumped in his chair. "And now they're teaching other species." That was the report he feared most. Across the galaxy, conquered races were watching Earth with growing interest. The humans weren't just fighting. They were showing others how to resist. On a distant Imperial colony, an alien resistance fighter watched smuggled footage of human guerrilla tactics. "They hide in plain sight," he whispered to his followers. "They turn the enemy's strength against them. We can do this too." The Empire's perfect order was cracking. In orbit around Mars, Major Banks led her squadron of stolen fighters in another raid. Her pilots were a mix of nationalities: American, Chinese, Russian, British, Indian, each bringing their own combat traditions to space warfare. "Remember," she told them, "they expect us to fight like them. Organized, predictable. Let's show them how humans really fight." The squadron scattered, each fighter attacking from a different angle, using maneuvers that Imperial computers classified as impossible or suicidal. But they worked. They always worked. Commander Reed watched another supply fleet burn. Something inside him had changed. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. He opened a secure channel to the Imperial capital. "This is Commander Reed with an emergency report. The humans, they're not just fighting us. They're learning, adapting. Every defeat teaches them. Every victory makes them stronger." He took a deep breath. "We're not containing them anymore. We're teaching them, and they're learning faster than we can adapt." The response came quickly. "Maintain position. Reinforcements are coming." Reed looked at the blue planet below. "I don't think that will be enough," he whispered, and made a decision that would change galactic history. He sent a single message to Earth: "I want to talk." In the Pentagon's war room, Colonel Parker read the message aloud. Around him, military leaders from every nation considered its implications. "It's the first time any Imperial commander has asked for dialogue," Parker noted. "They're finally learning." General Miller, the Joint Chiefs Chairman, nodded slowly. "Yes, they are. They're learning what every human soldier knows. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't the biggest gun." "What's that?" someone asked. Miller smiled grimly. "Fear, not of dying. Fear of facing an enemy that simply won't give up. Ever." The Empire was learning what countless human armies had learned before. There are some enemies you can't simply overpower. Some enemies grow stronger with every attack. And humanity had been growing stronger for thousands of years. Dr. Anna Wright stood in her laboratory, surrounded by pieces of Imperial technology. Her team had just finished taking apart their 15th hover tank. On the wall, a sign read, "If you don't understand it, you're not breaking it enough." "Report," she said into her comm unit. "We've figured out how their gravity drives work. And we've made them better." In the testing field outside, a modified Imperial tank floated 6 feet off the ground. But unlike the original, this one could also turn invisible. "How did you manage that?" Colonel Parker asked through the comm. "We combined their gravity tech with our stealth bomber coating," Anna replied. "The Empire builds everything to do one thing perfectly. We humans like our machines to multitask." The Empire was learning this lesson the hard way. High Commander Wilson watched in horror as his fleet's newest weapons failed against Earth's defenses. The humans weren't just copying Imperial technology. They were changing it, combining it with their own ideas, creating things that shouldn't exist. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the humans have taken our medical regeneration units and turned them into biological repair systems for their vehicles." "That's impossible. Those are meant for living tissue only." "They found a way, sir. They always find a way." On the battlefield, this human creativity was proving deadly. Imperial soldiers, trained to fight in perfect formation with standard tactics, found themselves facing enemies who refused to follow any rules of combat. In Australia, Aboriginal hunters used Imperial scanning tech to track ships through the outback, combining ancient hunting techniques with alien technology. In the Amazon, guerrilla fighters turned Imperial communication devices into jungle-wide trap networks. In the Arctic, Inuit warriors used modified Imperial heat shields to hide entire bases under the ice. At the North American Defense Command, General Miller reviewed the latest innovations. "Every culture on Earth," he explained to their new ally, Commander Reed, "has its own way of fighting. Now we're combining them all." Reed, who had defected after seeing humanity's potential, shook his head in amazement. "The Empire has spent 10,000 years perfecting one way of war. You have thousands of different methods, all working together." "That's because we never stopped fighting each other," Miller replied. "But now we're fighting together and bringing all our tricks with us." In orbit, Major Banks led another raid, this time with ships that combined Imperial engines with human stealth technology. Her squadron had painted their fighters with different camouflage patterns from Earth's military history. "Look alive, people," she called over the radio. Let's show them another new trick. Her fighters broke formation, each one activating a different human modification. Some turned invisible. Others split into smaller drones. A few released clouds of smart nanites that ate through Imperial shields. How? An Imperial captain screamed as his ship's systems failed. How do they keep inventing new ways to fight? The answer was simple. Humans had never stopped preparing for war. Every movie about alien invasions, every science fiction story about space battles, every war game and military exercise, they had all been practiced for this moment. In her lab, Dr. Wright put the finishing touches on her latest project. She had combined Imperial energy shields with the principles of human bulletproof vests. The Empire builds their shields to stop energy weapons, she explained to her team. But we humans know there's more than one way to break something. The test dummy wearing the new armor survived a direct hit from an Imperial capital ship's main gun. At the Imperial capital, the War Council received another disturbing report. The humans weren't just winning battles, they were revolutionizing warfare itself. Every defeat taught them. Every victory gave them new tools. They turned Imperial weapons against their makers, but better, smarter, more creative. They think differently, Commander Reed explained in his latest message to the Capitol. The Empire sees technology as a way to perfect existing tactics. Humans see it as a way to create new ones. In the Pentagon, Colonel Parker watched as another Imperial fleet retreated from Earth orbit. On his screens, reports poured in from around the world. New weapons, new tactics, new combinations of human and Imperial technology. Send word to all commands, he ordered. Phase 4 begins tomorrow. The offensive, General Miller asked. Parker nodded. The Empire taught us how to reach the stars. Time to show them what humanity does when we have room to expand. The Empire had made another mistake. They had given humanity access to advanced technology, expecting them to use it the Imperial way. Instead, humans had done what they always did. They adapted, they improved, and they prepared to take the fight to the enemy. The galaxy would never be the same. On the Imperial colony world of Blue Haven, Governor Mills watched his security feeds with growing concern. The native population was acting differently. Gone were their usual orderly lines and quiet submission. Instead, they moved like humans, unpredictably, purposefully, dangerously. They're learning, he whispered to his empty office. They're learning from Earth. His comm unit crackled. Governor, the mines, the slaves, there? The transmission cut off as the first explosions rocked the capital city. Back on Earth, Colonel Parker reviewed the latest intelligence reports. It's happening across the Empire now, he told the United Earth Defense Council. Every conquered species is watching us, and they're taking notes. Major Banks, recently promoted to commander of Earth's new space fleet, pointed to a galaxy map. Red dots showed spreading rebellion. The Empire taught their subjects to be obedient. We're teaching them something else. How to fight back, General Miller finished. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message. On the main screen, an alien face appeared, one of the Empire's slave species. Greetings, humans. We saw what you did. We saw how you fight. Will you teach us? It was the first of many such requests. In orbit around Mars, the first Galactic Freedom Academy opened its doors. Aliens from 100 worlds trained alongside human instructors, learning not just how to fight, but how to think like humans. Your people have served the Empire for 3 centuries, Lieutenant Jack Anderson told his class of insectoid aliens. You were perfect servants because you followed their rules. Now it's time to break them. He showed them videos of Earth's resistance, guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, improvised weapons. The aliens watched with their multiple eyes wide in amazement. But these methods are dishonorable. One student chittered. Anderson smiled. When you're fighting for survival, there's no such thing as dishonorable tactics. There's only winning and dying. The Empire was losing control, system by system. Their perfectly ordered galaxy was dissolving into chaos. But it wasn't random chaos. It was human chaos, organized and purposeful. High Commander Wilson, now leading the Empire's last major fleet, received reports of rebellions using human tactics. Stone Age tribes defeating Imperial cruisers. Peaceful farming species turning their planets into fortresses. Former slaves becoming warriors. What have they done? He demanded. What have these humans done to our galaxy? His tactical officer, looking older than ever, displayed more reports. They've given hope to the hopeless, sir. They've shown that even primitive species can defeat us. Every human victory becomes a lesson for others. On a dozen worlds, former Imperial subjects practiced human battle techniques. They learned to improvise weapons, to fight in small groups, to turn their environments into advantages. Most importantly, they learned to think for themselves. In her lab on Earth, Dr. Wright hosted alien scientists, teaching them to improve Imperial technology. Don't just copy it, she told them. Make it your own. Your species evolved differently than humans. Use that difference. The results were stunning. Aquatic species created underwater weapons that Imperial shields couldn't stop. Flying aliens developed aerial tactics that human pilots could never attempt. Each race added their own unique abilities to human warfare doctrine. Commander Reed, now Earth's chief liaison to rebel forces, addressed the first graduating class of the Freedom Academy. The Empire thought they were perfect. They thought their way was the only way. But humans taught me something important. Perfection is the enemy of survival. The alien students, representing 30 different species, roared in agreement. Each of them wore a patch showing Earth's outline, now a galaxy-wide symbol of resistance. At the Imperial capital, the War Council faced reality. Their perfect record of victories hadn't just been broken. It had been shattered. And now, their legacy of conquest was being undone by the very species they had enslaved. These humans, an Imperial counselor said, they're not just defeating us. They're replacing us. Every species they teach becomes a teacher for others. It's spreading exponentially. In Earth orbit, Commander Banks watched alien ships practicing alongside human fighters. Each species brought their own strengths, their own ideas. The combined fleet moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The Empire wanted to make us all the same, she told her mixed crew of humans and aliens. Instead, we're teaching the galaxy to celebrate differences, to use them, to turn them into strength. The Empire had created a perfect system of control, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity, an enemy that didn't just fight back, but taught others to fight too. An enemy that turned slaves into warriors, order into chaos, and defeat into inspiration. The terror was spreading, and it wore Earth's flag. In the Imperial capital's Grand Archive, Master Historian Davis stood before the High Council. His hands trembled as he presented his findings. We finally understand why humans are different, he began, and why we should have never attacked them. The council chamber, with its towering purple walls and ancient symbols, fell silent. Even the Emperor leaned forward to listen. Speak, the Emperor commanded. Davis activated a hologram showing Earth. Humans evolved on what we would classify as a death world. Their gravity is 1.3 times our standard. Their atmosphere is thick with oxygen, making fires common. Their planet experiences constant natural disasters. He changed the display to show human history. But that's not what makes them unique. Other species survived harsh worlds. What makes humans different is that they never stopped fighting to survive. In Earth orbit, Dr. Wright was giving a similar lecture to a group of alien scientists. She stood in the new Galactic Research Center, surrounded by representatives from 50 different species. Your worlds all achieved peace before reaching space, she explained. You ended your internal conflicts. The Empire saw this as progress. She smiled grimly. We humans never did. We kept preparing for war, even in peace. She showed them Earth's military history. Each human culture developed different ways of fighting. different ways of thinking. When the Empire attacked, they didn't face one enemy. They faced thousands of battle traditions combined into one. On the Imperial capital, Davis continued his explanation. Earth's high gravity gave humans dense muscles and strong bones. Their oxygen-rich air let them run longer than any species we know. Their harsh climate forced them to adapt constantly. He paused, letting the implications sink in. But their greatest advantage was their division. While we spread one culture across the galaxy, they kept thousands. While we perfected one way of war, they created millions. The Emperor's face darkened. Are you suggesting our unity is a weakness? Against humans? Yes. Davis brought up footage of Earth's armies. They can fight in any environment. They can use any weapon. Most importantly, they can teach others to do the same. Back at the research center, Dr. Wright was reaching the same conclusion. The Empire thought their technology made them superior, she told her alien audience. But technology is just a tool. What matters is how you use it. She demonstrated by taking apart an Imperial weapon. See? They build everything to be perfect at one task. We humans. She reassembled it with Earth modifications. We make everything adapt to new tasks. Commander Reed, watching from the back of the room, nodded in agreement. He remembered his own revelation about humans. It wasn't their strength or their technology that made them dangerous. It was their endless drive to improve, to adapt, to overcome. In the Imperial capital, Davis made his final point. The Empire has two choices, he told the Council. We can continue fighting and lose everything, or we can learn from humanity. They've proven that diversity breeds strength. That adaptation beats perfection. The Emperor stood, his ancient face troubled. You suggest we change everything, our entire civilization. With respect, Emperor, Davis replied, we must change or die. The humans have shown the galaxy a new way. Their ideas are spreading faster than our ships can travel. On Earth, the United Defense Council received an unexpected message from the Empire. Colonel Parker read it aloud. The Empire requests. Teachers. General Miller laughed. They want us to teach them. They want to learn how to think like us, Parker corrected. How to adapt. How to change. Commander Banks, fresh from another victory, smiled. Should we tell them that's the one thing the Empire might never learn? Perfect societies don't adapt well. We'll teach them anyway, Parker decided. Because that's what humans do. We teach. We share. We help others grow. In the Imperial capital, the Council made their decision, not just to make peace with Earth, but to learn from it, to study how humans turned their harsh world and endless conflicts into strength. Davis watched the Council dissolve into heated debate about how to implement these changes. It was wonderfully chaotic, almost human in its disorder. Perhaps, he thought, that was the first lesson humanity had taught them. Perfect order leads to stagnation. Chaos, properly managed, leads to growth. The Empire was about to learn what humans had always known. The only constant in life is change. 5 years after the first contact, an Imperial transport ship detected a new alien civilization reaching for the stars. Following standard protocol, the captain prepared for first contact. Then his computer displayed a special warning message, now required by Imperial law. Warning. Before engaging any new species, review Earth combat guidelines. If species shows signs of continuous warfare or adaptive military doctrine, do not engage. Retreat and contact Human Relations Department immediately. The captain smiled. Like all Imperial officers now, he had trained at Earth's Space Academy. He knew the stories. He had learned the lessons. In the Academy's main hall on Mars, Commander Banks stood before a new class of alien cadets. Behind her, a huge screen showed images from the Earth Empire War. Welcome to Advanced Military History, she began. Today, we'll study why one small planet changed the galaxy forever. Her students, representing 200 species, leaned forward eagerly. Earth's military academies had become the most prestigious in known space. The Empire classified us as a Grade S combat species after the war. Banks continued. We're the only ones with this rating. Do you know why? A tentacled alien raised an appendage. Because humans are stronger. No. Banks shook her head. Because we never stop learning. Never stop adapting. Never stop teaching others to do the same. On Earth, Colonel Parker, now General Parker, met with the Galactic Defense Council. The room held representatives from both former imperial worlds and newly discovered civilizations. Another war? A delegate asked, worried about recent border conflicts. No, Parker assured them. Thanks to Earth's military guidelines spreading across the galaxy, major wars have decreased by 90%. He brought up a galaxy map showing Earth's influence. Green dots marked worlds that had adopted human military doctrine. Red dots showed worlds still following the old imperial way. The green was winning. In the imperial capital, now called the Galactic Hub, former High Commander Wilson served as dean of the new Imperial War College. His office walls displayed Earth military history alongside imperial honors. You see, he told a young imperial officer, we thought humans were primitive because they kept fighting themselves. We didn't understand that conflict, properly managed, breeds innovation. He picked up an Earth history book. Every human war produced new tactics, new technology, new ways of thinking. While we perfected one way of fighting, they created millions. The young officer nodded. That's why all imperial ships now carry the warning. Exactly. Wilson turned to his window, watching ships of all species navigate the capital's skies. The warning saves lives. It reminds us that some species aren't meant to be conquered. They're meant to be learned from. At the Galactic Research Center, Dr. Wright supervised a team mixing human and alien technologies. Former enemies worked side by side, combining their knowledge in ways the Empire never imagined possible. The Empire's mistake, she told a visiting reporter, wasn't just attacking Earth. It was thinking that perfection was better than adaptation. That one right way was better than millions of possible ways. Commander Reed, now Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, put it more simply in his famous speech. The Empire taught us how to reach the stars. We taught them why the journey never ends. The warning spread beyond military matters. Across the galaxy, species began applying human adaptability to everything. Science, culture, art. The Empire's perfect order transformed into something new, organized chaos, guided by human principles of constant improvement. In orbit around distant worlds, imperial ships still patrolled, but now they carried human advisors. Now they studied new species for signs of creativity, of adaptability, of that special human spark that turned constant conflict into strength. The final note in the warning summed up the galaxy's new understanding. When facing a species that has survived constant warfare, remember, they have likely imagined every way they could be defeated. They have probably planned for situations we haven't imagined. They may seem primitive, but their warfare experience is their strength. Most importantly, they could become your greatest teachers. Classification. Grade S combat species currently has one member. Humanity. Final warning. If you find another, do not fight. Do not threaten. Make them your allies. Because a species that never stopped fighting itself will know a million ways to fight you, and they will teach others every single one. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The Empire had wanted to make everyone the same. Humanity showed them something better, how to become something new. And somewhere in deep space, another Imperial ship turned away from a warlike species, following the warning that had become the galaxy's most important law. When you find humans, or those like them, don't fight. Run. Or better yet, learn.